Thank you, Sherry. Let me put this over here. Okay, great. So, hi again, Dr. Liana, and I'm the medical director. I'm certified in functional medicine. Thank you, Deb. And I'm also a business success mentor. So, if you were one of the founding members at Peak, you worked with me. If you're going to see us for functional medicine solely, I would be the person that you see. I'm an osteopathic physician. I've been practiced for over 15 years. I can't believe it. And so I've had at least 7 years experience in practicing functional medicine. And initially I was trained in internal medicine in the Air Force. I was active duty in the Air Force practicing internal medicine. So my journey has led me here. So I'm so excited. And also, this is a little bit about Kristen. And I'm sorry, Kristen, if I didn't, I think I butchered your initials. You're at the end. Okay. Um, your letters at the end, but Kristen is here and she is the nurse practitioner for primary care at Peak. And she's also trained in functional health, and she's getting more training and basically kind of mentoring under me. So I'm mentoring Kristen to give her all of my knowledge, everything that I know. And she's also doing her own training as well. And she's also trained as IV nutrient therapy practitioner. So if you didn't know, we now offer IV nutrient therapy. So that's super exciting. And yeah, and she does all the family medicine things. So super excited to have you here, Kristen. So I want to start off too by saying that we treat people, not disease. And this is a really safe space. I want this to be a safe space for you all because I want to take a moment and stop to acknowledge you if you have been harmed in any way by the healthcare system. I know that it has been it's been difficult for a lot of people who have not felt well, have felt sick, and have been struggling with symptoms and not knowing what's going on with their body. And then to go to your doctor and ask them for help and guidance and then feel totally invalidated, gaslighted, or simply ignored. So I just want you to know that my heart, I have space for you in my heart. I just want to witness you here right now if that's been you. And I'm deeply sorry in any way if anyone here has been harmed by someone in the healthcare system. And I like to say that because there's also a lot of things going on in the healthcare system where people have felt, it's not just like the overall system, but even like working with one-on-one people in that system too, whether, who have been discriminated against or been said that they're crazy, quote unquote, or that they're not doing enough, exercising enough, right? So whatever it is that you were told that made you feel invalidated or felt less than, I just want you to know that we are here to try to rectify that. And this is the reason why we designed Peak. And it would be amazing if we could totally fix that in the world. And we don't know if that's, I'm going to see that in our lifetime, but like, we're just not going to stop trying to get there. So Peak is our answer for that. So I just want you all to know that. All right. So when it comes to thyroid health, right, these are a lot of the common questions that I hear or that people ask. And you may have these questions as well. And they're not always simple. They're not always simple. And I just want you to know that in medical training, and Kristen, you can attest to this, that we're not taught all the things. There's a very brief education about the thyroid. There's a very brief education about how hormones act together in symphony in your body. Because the way that they're taught is that they're taught to be very separate from each other. Like all the hormonal systems and the organs of the body are taught separately. You're not taught an integrated system, right? You're not taught the way that things actually really work together, right? Which is, you do one thing and it affects another. That's just like the natural law of like the body, right? We're actually kind of not really taught that. It's, or if we are, it's not like driven home. That point is very glazed and glossed over. And the focus really is solely on individual organ systems. So, if you do have thyroid problems, if you're not addressing other symptoms, we're really missing the boat. So, although today I am going to be talking about like just the thyroid, like mainly the thyroid, there's other systems at play here. And that's why, like, when it comes to your thyroid, it's not very clear, right? There's always variables and external factors that are affecting it. And so when you go to a conventional doctor and you're asked these questions and you're not getting a lot of answers, that is why we're not trained this in depth. I went through years of training after I finished my residency. And that was training that I sought out myself, that I paid for myself. That was like, it wasn't like a residency where you go, you get trained on the job. It wasn't like that. It was like, wow, I have to actively seek this out because the medical education system is not wanting to teach this. So this is how insidious it is. So it's like, you're a Ferrari and you're taking your Ferrari to the Kia dealership to get checked out. It's like, no, they're not going to know. They're not going to know. So, is all of this make sense? Like, are y'all following? I just want to make sure. Type yes in the chat. Okay. Thank you. All right. So we're going to go through these questions. I'm going to kind of answer them for you so that you understand it, and then explain to you a little bit about thyroid hormone physiology and why the answers are to the questions that are the answers, like why the answers are the answers, basically. And then I'm going to show you how, like at peak, how we look at the thyroid lab testing and how it's different for us. So, all right. So we're going to start with, what thyroid labs do I actually need, right? This is one of the most common ones that I see. And here are the ones that you actually need, right? And it might surprise you because you probably thought that I was going to give you like a full-on list, which, yes, I'm about to give you that list. However, this is it. Like, people are not even getting this when they need to be. And so if you're at least getting this, it's like, okay, we can start somewhere. So TSH, which is a thyroid stimulating hormone, and then free T4, which is, I'm sorry, I had that wrong. It's not levothyroxine. It's thyroxine, a free thyroxine level. So these are the labs, at least if your doctor is not trained in, or if you're not seeing maybe an endocrinologist. Even some endocrinologists are not doing the deeper, more comprehensive labs. But if you're seeing someone who's not familiar with that level, that deeper level, this is at least what they're going to get, and that you should be getting, and that you can ask for, right? If you have symptoms that qualify, like if you're using insurance and you have symptoms that qualify you for these to be covered under your insurance, then your insurance would cover it. And that's how the game works. So there are a million symptoms of hypothyroidism, so many different things, from constipation, depression, to weight gain, to hair loss, to hair thinning, to skin problems, to rashes, to heartburn. I mean, it's really a very, very long list. Pain, chronic pain, inflammation, arthritis. Like, there's just really so many different symptoms of hypothyroidism. So this is another reason why people are struggling, because doctors or other healthcare providers are thinking of all these, like, a million other things that could be causing your symptoms, right? So that's just one reason. So here you are struggling with your symptoms, right? But what you need to know is that these are the lab tests, right? At least that need to be done, at the very least. Now, if we want to like get all rainbow and sparkle and glitter and all that, this is like the whole picture. And this is what I like will geek out on, to see if I want to see the whole picture and see what your thyroid is doing. I love to see not just TSH and free T4, but also a free T3, which is a triiodothyronine, a total T3. So there's free and total, which means like how much you have free to use. And then total is like how much you have in total in your body. And then there's reverse T3, which is like the supervillain doppelganger version of T3. Literally, it's like the evil twin. And then there's the thyroid antibody panel, which looks for antibodies against certain parts of of things that are acting inside your thyroid. So I don't want to go deep into what the anti-thyroid antibodies are, but just know that they are destroying. We'll go into it, but they're destroying thyroid tissue. But I don't want to go into it because that's just too sciencey for right now. So a little bit of thyroid hormone physiology. I just want to talk about type yes if you're following me, by the way. Type yes if that made sense to you. Okay, good. Thank you. Thank you, Deb. Thanks, Denise. Okay, so first and foremost, right, I want you to know that thyroid hormone production, it's a cascade of events. So it's like, it's not just like, it's just making it. It's just producing it. It's a whole cascade of things that have to happen. And it starts in the gland in your brain called the hypothalamus. So this little P-shaped thing that actually produces several hormones in your brain. And you can think of it like a spy or a messenger. And it's always scanning your body for hormone levels so that it can tell your pituitary gland, also in the brain, how to direct all the other glands in your body. Like it's basically the who's that guy at the conductor of an orchestra. The pituitary gland is basically the conductor of an orchestra, sending messages to the glands, telling them what to do in your body. So they can start making hormones or produce hormones. So how's that? Everybody doing okay? You can just shake your head. Okay. Now, here's where a lot of misunderstanding takes place. Oops. So TSH, right? What we're measuring, everybody thinks, or a lot of people think that that's the level of thyroid hormone, but it's not. TSH is actually thyroid stimulating hormone, and it's coming from your pituitary gland, and it actually talks to your thyroid gland because it's telling your thyroid gland when to pump out more thyroid hormone, right? So TSH basically sends a message to your thyroid, and your thyroid is that little, the picture is clear. It's that little butterfly gland that's lit up in the front of your neck. And it's basically telling it to start producing thyroid hormone or not. So it's really the master regulator. So the majority of hormone production that takes place is actually to create like thyroxine. So we want to your thyroid is pumping out a lot of T4. It's like building it inside. And it's been nicknamed T4. So thyroxine we just nickname it T4 because it's got 4 iodine molecules attached to it. So that's where iodine comes into thyroid health, right? Because iodine is attached to this T4. So that leaves, but the thing is, it's only 95% of your thyroid gland makes T4. The other 5% is T3. So T3 only has 3 iodine molecules. And like I mentioned, I think I mentioned this, but T3 is the more metabolically active form of thyroid hormone that is responsible for getting your body in motion and going out to the rest of your body and like revving up metabolism or not. So you make more T4 than you make T3, and you need to change T4 into T3. So this little conversion piece here, here it is. This little conversion piece here of T4 to T3, it's really dicey. It's really dicey. There's a lot of steps in here, and there's a lot of things that help it, and there's a lot of things that can actually slow it down. So there's a lot going on in the background here. Things like selenium and zinc actually help this conversion of T4 into T3. And T3 has to work in your body. Just because it's there floating around in your bloodstream, that's great, but it has to actually bind to cells to start working, right? And send the messages. Well, the things that help it bind to cells are zinc, vitamin A, and exercise. Okay. So if you're, and that's what, that's why people are like, oh, zinc is just like this power master like mineral. I love it. And vitamin A is so many functions, and you can get all of these from food. But just be careful if I'm saying this and you're hearing it, and you don't just go out right off the bat and buy vitamin A. Like talk to somebody, talk to a practitioner, because high doses of vitamin A, that needs to be looked at. Like you can't just like start taking high doses of vitamin A. You can actually harm your liver, and whatnot. So just saying though, if someone's truly vitamin A deficient, it takes a lot to be vitamin A deficient nowadays. But if you are, that would slow down your thyroid. All right. So how are we doing? Is everyone on board still? There's no deer in the headlights. Okay. Thank you. Okay. So why do I have normal labs and I still feel terrible? Because a lot of y'all are taking or you're going to the doctor and you're getting the TSH, you're getting the T4, and it's like you still feel bad. You're still sluggish, you're still tired, you still have trouble sleeping, still feeling depressed, still feeling constipated, right? And it's like, but even and taking thyroid hormone and still feeling bad. So that's another thing that I also see. So it's like my thyroid labs look normal, or I'm on thyroid hormone, my labs look normal, but I still feel really bad. So those are the most common scenarios. And I know a lot of you can resonate with that, because you may be on some sort of supplementation, and then just like all of a sudden it stops working or something changes. So we're going to go into that. Okay. So one of the reasons why you have normal lab work and still feel terrible is because when you get your labs done, it's easy for TSH and T4 to look normal, but then all the other things here, oh, my mouse is in the wrong place. All the other things besides or underneath, behind the scenes, like the conversion from T4 changing into T3, and your T3 binding to cells in the body, and the supervillain, the evil twin, reverse T3 coming in. And, because that can happen too. Instead of making T3, sometimes your body goes into making reverse T3, which is the evil twin, which is non-functional. So there's all these things behind the scenes that we're not capturing with just a TSH and a free T4. So if you're on thyroid medication already, if you're on thyroid hormone supplementation, then it's worthwhile doing a little bit of a deeper dive. And I will say this, that there's a lot of different types of thyroid hormone medication, and you don't always need all of the labs that I mentioned earlier. You don't always need all of them to monitor you and monitor your dosing. But if stuff hits the fan and you're feeling really bad, it may be time to do all those things, right? So I just want to say that this is why your labs can look normal and still feel terrible. Also, too, in the conventional world, like what we're taught to go by the lab reference ranges that like the labs give us. So, Quest or LabCorp will give us a reference range of where your numbers should fall. And it's very black or white. It's very like you're here or you're there. You're normal or abnormal. And it's so, it's almost like it's insulting, right? I don't know how many of you feel like that's insulting. Like, what do you mean it's just black or white with my blood work? Like, nothing in life is black or white. Like, why is my blood work black and white? It doesn't make any sense. Like, we all know life just doesn't work that way. Like, I still feel bad. Something is wrong. So in functional medicine, and other avenues, not just functional medicine, but other realms of alternative medicine too, we look at the reference ranges as more of a sliding scale, and we have a little bit more conservative and stricter numbers. So there's in my personal opinion, I feel like that reference range is very large for TSH, and a lot of people will have a elevated TSH, but still considered normal. So there's always a way that you can, it's, to me, it might not be optimal. So it'll be above optimal, meaning it's not exactly normal, but it's not in a scary range. So there's your non-black and white answer, right? Like, yeah, no, it's technically not in a range where you might need medication, but it's definitely not optimal. And we know that it could be better. So it doesn't mean that you need thyroid hormones. but it means that you need to do something, that the thyroid is struggling. It's on the struggle bus. And there's things that we can do for that. So does that make sense? Say yes. Let me unmute you, Kristen.
I also just wanted to point out, like coming from the conventional standpoint, that a lot of times they'll check your TSH with a reflex to T4. So if you're going off of the conventional ranges of like a normal TSH, half the time they don't even do a T4. So if you're getting those labs done, I would try to advocate for yourself to be like, I want TSH and T4 done. I don't want the reflex. Just
Thank
a little
you.
side note.
No, thank you for sharing that. Yes, because I was being generous.
Yeah, it's not good. Most of them are TSH with reflex to T4. And if you're not over like, I don't remember what the range is, then it won't even reflex to the T4. So they're just like, oh, you're normal, you're good.
Right. I was being, and, you know, Kristen is much closer to the conventional world than I am, which I left like 7 years ago. But even back then, I don't know if I was checking TSH and free T4. I don't know. I can't remember what I was doing, but yeah, you're right. Some people are not even getting a free T4. They're just getting a TSH, and your TSH can be right at that border, right at that upper limit of normal. And they'll say, oh, it's fine. You're okay. But you're kind of actually not, right? I mean, it's not black and white. So thank you, Kristen.
You're welcome.
Okay. So that's what you need to know. I mean, is that there are other things going on behind the scenes, and it's not everything is being looked at. So why did my thyroid stop working? So this is super, this is a loaded question. There's so many different answers to this, and it can feel really invalidating to go and here you are trying to get answers from the expert, and they're telling you, well, it's just like stopped working, like it stopped churning. Like and to me, I never, even in when I was in you know, like regular internal medicine, it just always felt like, why didn't they close the loop on this? You know, it always felt like this very vague area of like, my gosh, okay, so it just stops working. Why? And nobody ever said anything. And internally, I just always felt so like weird, because I just didn't have like, for me, I need like answers, right? And they just didn't like explain it, and they didn't really go into like you know what we're about to talk about. But I know, I know it can be very frustrating for you to walk out of the doctor's office with no answers, and then all of a sudden, like, just here's your medication, and you're like, what? Like, no, so I don't even know why this is happening, and now I have to take something for it. So it's almost like it that can feel very disconcerting. But what you need to know is that one of the most common causes is Hashimoto's, right? So a lot of the times people's thyroids stop working because they're undergoing autoimmune destruction of the tissue. So that's what I want you to know. And also, it's not the only reason. There's lots of reasons, but this is it's coming out more and more that this is probably the most common, and it's more common than we think. If you're not familiar with like the word autoimmune destruction or autoimmune, what that is your immune system kind of turns on you, and it recognizes your own tissue as foreign. And so antibodies start attacking your own tissue. So autoimmune, that's like the basis of the term. And so there are different types of autoimmune disorders. And a lot of the time, right? I don't want to get this in your brain, but sometimes, not all the time, if you have one autoimmune disorder, sometimes if you're not getting that under control or under wraps, another one can develop. So some examples of autoimmune diseases are like psoriasis, rheumatoid arthritis, Sjogren's, scleroderma, lupus. So there's a lot of different autoimmune disorders, and the autoimmune disorder of the thyroid, that's Hashimoto's, will destroy the tissue and actually create a low, like hypothyroidism, so low thyroid levels. So you would have to replace your thyroid hormone. There are some, like there's Graves' disease, which like will put you in a hyperthyroid state, right? Which would rev up your thyroid hormone. But this is a cause. And the thing is too, this can happen Like you can have a flare of this, feel really bad, like really bad fatigue, really bad symptoms, have a very big change in just your functionality day to day, how you think, your mood, your weight, how you sleep. And it can be very severe and very like abrupt. Some people don't experience it like that. So they just kind of think, oh, life's getting to me, you know, oh, life works hard, you know, and the thing is we acclimate ourselves to functioning at this low level that we don't even realize we might be missing an active flare up of this or the start of it. And so a lot of people don't, or they go to their doctor and the doctor's not finding it, right? So we actually don't know if a lot of people, this is why we don't know if a lot of people had Hashimoto's, because by the time you actually get to figuring out that your thyroid's the problem, the antibodies have gone away, or there's just kind of no evidence of it. The inflammation has calmed down. So if you are in a flare, right, the way we can figure this out is by just doing a full, complete, comprehensive panel, right? Is like doing those thyroid antibodies. And I've had instances where I've caught this very early and helped people like right away turn it around to get their TSH and their thyroid numbers right. But it does take getting that comprehensive panel and also like catching it, you know? So it's a little dicey. Are you still with me? Type yes or raise your hands. I could just know that. Okay, thank you. All right. So why does my dose of thyroid hormone keep increasing? I feel your pain because I'm also in pain when I have to do this. Okay, just want y'all to know that. It also pains me because figuring this out ain't exactly easy. Okay. This is the most simple slide I promise you that I could have put up here. There are so many reasons. Okay. Um, and I'll say this: weight gain. Yes, weight gain can come because your thyroid is low. However, you can still gain weight even though you're on thyroid medication. Like I think it's a common misnomer. It's like, oh, now I'm on my thyroid hormone and I'm not going to gain weight, right? It's not like it's not going to bar you from gaining weight. Like you could still gain weight even though your thyroid numbers are normal. Like maybe you've increased your caloric intake, you've added more salt to your diet, you're exercising less, you're more stressed. You know, there's just so many different reasons why people can gain weight. And maybe you started a new medication, right? There's just a lot of things. So weight gain, and just so you know too, thyroid hormone is the prescription is based off of how much you weigh. That's how we start it. That's how we decide the dose. And then we keep monitoring it every 6 weeks to make sure we get the dosing right until you feel good and your labs look good, right? So weight gain can be one reason. If you did gain weight, that we have to go up on the dose. Nutrient and vitamin deficiencies are also another reason. Like I said, so selenium and vitamin A, also vitamin D, right? Of course, like vitamin D is just like air. So just think of vitamin D basically now like air, right? It's everything for everything. So I think that people are gonna like put it in the water at some point, but vitamin D deficiency can also affect how much thyroid hormone you're making. And also there's zinc was the other one too. So these nutrients can definitely cause like you to need a extra higher dose. The other thing is continued destruction of your thyroid tissue. So if you do have Hashimoto's, right? If you do have an autoimmune flare, it can flare up cyclically, right? Like in cycles and seasons, if you're very stressed out or have some sort of inflammatory process flare up. And if we are not getting that inflammation in your system under control, then this will continue to like kind of gnaw at your thyroid, right? So this is why like trying to figure out if it's Hashimoto's or some other immune process is super important, because we want to keep as much native thyroid tissue, right, functioning as much as possible. And then lastly, toxins. So toxins can actually mess with the conversion of T4 to T3. So if you're on Synthroid, if you're on a T4 hormone, then you still need to make T3, right? You're still going to make T3. Your body still has to convert it. Like the job's not done. So that was like I know for a lot of patients of mine, that was like a really big rude awakening. Like, oh, just because I'm taking T4 doesn't mean I'm totally going to feel better. It means I have to actually convert T4 to T3 still. And there's something barring that process from happening, because T3 is what really is the more metabolically active, if you remember, that your body's going to drink up and really want. So if you have mold toxicity, right? If you have mold exposure in your body, if you have heavy metal toxicity, lead, cadmium, mercury, that can muck with those conversions and actually make T3 into its evil twin, reverse T3. And if you have low numbers of beneficial bacteria in your microbiome, like if um, so if you have like parasites, yeast, if you have bad bacteria that cause IBS, inflammatory bowel symptoms, then that can also directly mess with how your thyroid functions. All right. Any questions about that? Make sure you type them in the chat, because we're going to be answering some questions anyway. So I just want to make sure y'all are still with me. Does that make sense? Okay. Thank you. All right. So here's another common question. Why can't I take T3? Why can't I just switch to T3? Why can't I just take Armor? Why can't I just take thyroid gland and freeze dry it? And the answer is not easy, right? The answer is not easy. Oops. Let me go here. The answer is not easy because this is an individual, it has to happen on an individual basis. So everyone has different different things. And I know a lot of people talk and, you want to do what someone else is doing because it worked for them, but it may not actually be working or work for you. So like you just saw this last slide here, all the things that can go wrong as to why you're not making enough thyroid hormone. This is why we need to get deeper and a deeper conversation about what's going on and dig a little deeper into your labs about what's happening with the full thyroid picture, right? So what is your brain telling your thyroid? What are your adrenal glands telling your thyroid, right? What are your adrenal glands telling your thyroid? So I'll say this too, Armor and T3 are not benign. They're not just benign things, right? Thyroid hormone medication or supplementation is not benign stuff. T3 is very potent and it can create a lot of palpitations in people. If you have existing heart disease, you have to be very careful about how you dose it and how much you take. You have to be consistent with taking your medication. You have to be consistent with your diet. You have to be consistent with your lifestyle, but also it might not be right for everyone. Because we all have different things creating our thyroid hormone, issues, right? So the other thing too is Armor or just glandular is the whole thyroid. So some people don't need that because they may have liver issues, or sometimes that can give people a big dose of iron that they don't need. That's more so with the supplements, just like over the counter, buying them on the internet, not Armor. But some people don't need all the constituents and all the components. So that's my kind of short answer for that. Is like, I know that it's easy, and I've put people on T3 and T4 and had it compounded at a special pharmacy and all that. And what I found is that it doesn't work for everybody. And sometimes we need to be really particular about which ones we're picking. And sometimes some people respond to a certain brand more than they do another. And so we really need to take your history into account when we're like deciding on what's going to be right for you, and doing that deeper work, and not just the deeper work, but also like whatever you can change in your immediate lifestyle and your immediate surroundings and your life, how you live, how you eat, how you sleep, that will make so many changes that you might not even need a dose change, or you might not need to be on a whole medication change, altogether. So when we look at and this is the other reason why T3 is not for everyone. So the adrenal glands, right, will also upregulate T3. And so if you're very stressed out, you will have your adrenal glands firing lots of adrenaline and lots of cortisol. And when you have a lot of T3, if you're taking T3 and you have a lot of adrenaline and cortisol firing in your body and those hormones flying around, you could really throw your hormones into a disarray. So that's why I'm saying T3 is not benign. And we just want to make sure that obviously what people are on is that it's right for them. So, okay, I'll get to these questions. So yeah, so here's the peak approach, right? So here's kind of what we've been looking at and doing. So you see like these sliding scales here where it goes like from red to red. Oh, before I go into this, Kristen, did you want to add anything to that last? You're good. Okay. Okay, so here's how, instead of that black and white reference range, right? So here's what we can provide you versus, let me go back here. Let me show you. So this is what you would get like in Quest or LabCorp. Okay. So you either fall in here or you don't. But this here tells us a little bit more of a better picture of where you're at, right? Because you might not just be like within the normal range. This is actually all within the normal range, sort of in Quest. But do you see how like there's different segments here, like optimal, below optimal, above optimal, and I think this is really strict. Like 1 to 2 for TSH is actually really, really strict. I think it's more like 0.5 to maybe 2.5. But you can be in this regular normal reference range and still be above optimal for your TSH, which would mean that you have a lower thyroid hormone, lower thyroid hormone levels in your body. So they're an inverse relationship. When TSH goes up, it's because your brain is trying to tell your thyroid, we need more T4. We need more thyroid hormone. So the TSH goes up and your thyroid's struggling and it's pumping out T4. And when it pumps out enough T4, the glands in your brain, the hypothalamus will see, oh, we have T4 enough floating in the bloodstream. So let's drop down the TSH. We don't need as much. So you can calm down now, thyroid. It's okay. So that's what happens when you start taking thyroid hormone supplementation, your TSH level comes down and it normalizes. And then when you don't have enough thyroid hormone, it goes back up. So we look at TSH, we look at the free T3, we look at the free T4, and we look at ratios too of like free T to free T4, because this is also clue us into other things going on like liver dysfunction, cardiac disease, cardiovascular risk. And so we've actually been using this ratio, the one that you see in the bottom. We've actually been using that to help assess for other diseases going on in the body, because it can also mean other things too, not just something that has to do with your thyroid. Did any of you know that like your thyroid numbers can tell you about other things going on in your body? I mean, it's like, I didn't learn that in medical school. Like it's just insane to me. Here's another one. So actually, let me go back. You know what? Because see, this TSH is 3.91 and it's above optimal. Oh yeah. Okay. I see my mouse. It's above optimal. This person probably feels bad. This person probably feels bad. They don't have, they have a below optimal, but still normal free T4. So in fact, this person does have symptoms. So, and there's some blood sugar dysregulation going on in the background too. And there is a little bit of some inflammation going on in the background. So this ratio is elevated. So this tells me that there's probably some autoimmune things going on. There's definitely, there's cholesterol markers that were off as well. And it's not just this thyroid is not the only thing going on, like this thyroid issue. Yes, they feel bad, and there's other things going on that we also need to look at. So this person might not even need, I actually wouldn't prescribe anything. I wouldn't prescribe anything as bad as they feel until they made some lifestyle changes. And at Peak, we offer what we call Base Camp, which is our introductory It's basically our signature nutrition and lifestyle program where you would address all the things that you can control to get your thyroid normal. And actually, I've had several people be able to normalize their thyroid numbers, get them much better, bring this TSH down to more optimal range, and then not need anything. Not need anything. So not need to start any thyroid hormone. So it's been really useful for us to have that and show people that you can actually take your power back, control some things. And medication's not always the answer, and it could be, but let's fix everything first, right? Let's fix everything first that we have in our control to make sure that we get you to where you want to be. So here's another one that looks optimal. So TSH, in this green range, right? The free T3 is a little bit low. So these numbers, even from a functional medicine perspective, I wouldn't be totally worried about it. I'd be like, oh, it looks great, right? But then I see the ratio and it's above optimal. And when I look at all the other labs this person has, there's a lot of other things going on that show that their cardiovascular risk is actually elevated. So if this were like all you were to get, and I saw this, I would say, okay, you probably need more labs, and you probably need to be looking for some other things going on in your heart and your liver and whatnot. So, does that make sense? Anyone like have any questions? Okay, good. Okay. Because I trust y'all know, like, I just like, I'm going to throw these labs up, and I'm just going to trust that everyone's going to get it. Cause I know that you've all been through the gamut with like looking at your blood work, trying to figure things out on Google, on the internet, getting all the education you need. And I didn't want to make this too crazy to understand. So I'm happy. And then we have these deficiencies, right? So from that same sort of report, or the same sort of lab report that you saw there, we can figure out like, what do you have that could be potentially deficient, right? What could you have like, okay, so yes, these are what your numbers are from Quest, just regular labs. And now what's your need for these other things? And so, we don't need to test for zinc, which can be really expensive. A B12 folate is pretty cheap to check, but let's say we didn't check that, right? Let's say we didn't even look at B12 and folate. We just looked at only your thyroid or something like that. Or we looked at your complete blood counts, like your white blood cell count, your hemoglobin, right? Your CBC. We would be able to get that. We would be able to get your nutrient needs from very, very basic labs. And so that's what we're really all about, is like, there's so much information out there that is available to us, and we want to make sure that it's also available to you too, but we're not looking. It's like right in front of our face and we can't see it. That's so frustrating. And so many people are going to their annual wellness and getting their lipid panel, their blood sugar, their liver, kidney checked, and then they walk out saying, yeah, everything's good, everything's okay. Yet there's things brewing underneath, and so we want to make sure that the numbers stay good, and that we're also staving off anything that's potentially brewing, right? We want to do both things. We want to, that's the peak approach, is that we don't just only say, okay, yay, like this showed you were negative for cancer, or that you're negative for this, and so we're good. We want to take that a step further and also tell you, wonderful, your labs look good, you're free of this is negative, and we're not seeing evidence of that. But let's also make sure it stays that way, right? Let's make sure it stays that way. Let's make sure that you have the tools that you need to continue to stay healthy, Oh my gosh, Mary Louise, I'm totally seeing that now. I'm so excited. I'm so excited for your labs. Somebody needs to ping me when Mary Louise labs come in, please. That's so exciting. The same thing happened to my mom. So my mom been on Synthroid probably since her early 40s, her late 40s or something. She's like 70 now. And I was like, oh, I can't handle this. Like, your thyroid's out of control. I'm just going to compound you something. So I did that. And she had no clue what I was doing. And then all of a sudden she was like, she got the spring back in her step, and it was great, right? Because it was right for her. Like I got extra labs for her. I was like, I want to make sure that T3 is right for you, but it was. And once I pulled the trigger on doing that, it really helped. And then actually what happened was she not behind my back, but kind of behind my back. She went to her endocrinologist and switched back to Synthroid because she's like a people pleaser. So she's like, I didn't want to make her feel bad. So I was like, okay, I'll take it. And I'm like, Mom, no. And now she's struggling with the dose again. So I'm gonna have to like take the reins back, or I'm gonna tell her to see Kristen. Maybe she'll listen to you, Kristen. I don't know what it's gonna take, whatever. But you see, like there's so much going on underneath. And actually my mom went through something very similar to base camp as well. All right. So if you're watching and you're not a member and you want in on this, we have something called a functional health report that we give everyone that basically will tell you whether your labs are optimal, above optimal, suboptimal, and give you so much more information that you ever gotten on your regular labs. And when you work with us, you have three functional medicine brains looking at all of your stuff. So we do appreciate a collaborative effect. Kristen and I like are texting and boxering, walkie-talkie every day. And then there's Dr. Buddy, who obviously has also been in the functional medicine space practicing. When there's something we can't figure out, we put our heads together. When someone's really struggling, we talk to each other. It's almost like having a round table of practitioners when you join us. And I don't think I need to tell you all. I kind of drove home the point, like, we take the different approach to your thyroid health, right? Like we're doing the deeper investigation. So if you want to join us, we would love to have you. And if you haven't, even if you just want to know if it's right for you, just scan this with your phone. You can take your phone right now and just take a picture of that thing, and it'll take you right to the link where you can get on a call with Dr. Buddy and chat with him about how to work with us for your thyroid. There's so many different ways to work with us, actually. So don't assume like it's just only that you have to join our membership or something like that. Like there's a lot of different ways to work with us. So I really encourage you to get on that call. And if you're a member and you're struggling with your thyroid, like send Kristen a message. I'll let you unmute, Kristen. Send Kristen a message. Let us know what's going on. And, if it's time for your functional health report, we can do that. If we need to just do the comprehensive panel for your thyroid, we can do that too. But we need to hear from you. So that's the other thing too, right? Is and I'll put this in the chat, the link to that. We need to know if you're struggling. Like we're here for you. You can message us, and I want to know. Like we need to know. So if you want to get on a call with Dr. Buddy, if you're not a member, gopeakmed.com. That's the link. I put it in the chat. And if you are a member, just send one of us a message, just call the office and Stacy a message. Like there's a million ways to contact us. But yeah, so I'm open for questions. I know there's some questions that are there. Kristen, anything you want to add while I go through these questions?
No, I mean, I just want to say that when it comes to having a relationship with your practitioner, I think at Peak it is the best relationship I've ever had with patients. Yeah, just going through different messages, phone calls, like coming from other practices, I've always had to go through like my nursing staff to talk to patients, and it was a pain. Like I felt like there was no one-on-one communication. So working at Peak has definitely been fabulous when it comes to that I can actually talk to you. I will call you personally. We'll work through it. I will talk to Dr. Liana. I'll talk to Dr. Buddy, and everybody just works together. So come join us. We'd be happy to help you. You're here for a reason. So
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, we're so happy to have you, Kristen.
you.
It's really I kind of I love that you are so fresh out of that the conventional space, because what I find is that you really have like the compassion, and you see it's like the difference in like being able to actually talk to people, right? Like the
Yes.
difference to just have someone and actually talk to them is really does it makes a world of a difference. And yeah, definitely just will it'll really fast forward results, you know, and also too, with having all of us on board, we there's just, you know, we sometimes we tend to like be very laser focused on like, I think this is what my problem is, I'm struggling with this. And then when you talk to us, it's, you know, we can really like open, well, maybe it's this, you know what I mean? Like we have so much experience between all of us that it's you know, it's really hard to like just think small, you know, and be very focused on this is what it is, and be very like narrow minded about it, you know. um okay, let me make sure. Haley's asking, how can I find out if there are deficits in the microbiome? So if you want to unmute Haley, you can feel free, or if not, that's fine too.
Yeah, so you had that one slide that talked about the other pieces that could be affecting thyroid function. And the very last one on there it talked about the biome and toxins and mold, I believe. So, like, how do you determine if those are the pieces that are impacting that thyroid function? Is there testing for that, or is that just through like a history analysis, like of past symptoms and exposure?
Yeah, we can do that with both. We can do that with both. So we have a, if you remember, you've taken our nutritional assessment. You probably cursed us out about the 300 questions that are on there, cursing us behind the scenes of like, how many questions are they going to ask? Well, we have a nutritional assessment questionnaire that is very, very, can really pinpoint and assess um, what your symptoms are, and extrapolate like what body system is being affected. And then also we can do urinary mycotoxin testing. So yes, I mean, obviously, like if mold exposure is a thing, you always want to like look at your home, make sure there's no water damage, test your home. You know, I always tell, I think mold testing like on a regular basis is a good idea, actually, you know. So yeah, we can actually test you though, right, for urinary mycotoxins to see if mold is in your body, but creating toxins. So a lot of people are exposed. Mold is everywhere, right? It's just part of the world. But when mold gets into our system and it actually it loves fat, like toxins love fat. It can sit there and kind of be dormant, but when you do things like try to lose weight, or try to go to the gym, or you try to sweat more, or you try to do something, you know, switch up your diet, make some lifestyle changes, it might not like that, and it can create toxins. Or you can have more inflammation in your body, and that inflammation is making the mold angry, and then the mold is making the toxins, and the toxins are what are affecting you. And the same thing happens for heavy metals too. So heavy metals love to sit in fat cells. Same thing can happen. They can sit there, but then you can aggravate them to come out, and then they affect your body. So we can test for heavy metals. We can test for the mold, and we can look at the microbiome as well. So same thing with the microbiome. You can have a lot of uglies, like bad bacteria that aren't helpful or pleasant, right, to your body, that are kind of harmful and wreak havoc. And they can sit there dormant, but if you do something that they don't like, it's like you're paying the price, right? And then there's diarrhea, there's loose stool, there's IBS symptoms, inflammatory flare. So you can check for you can check your microbiome, and there's testing for that. You can check for parasites, for yeast, for the bacteria, for viruses as well in your gut, and kind of get very targeted and specific with therapies to address that. So does that help answer your question? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, and here's the approach I take to that too, is like, yeah, there are those esoteric, deeper level things that are like, you know, the heavy metals and the mold and stuff, but we really like to go, you know, that stuff can get a little bit expensive, I'm not going to lie. And I don't like to fire off those things. unless you're like, no, I want to do that. I'm ready to do that. Okay. But also too, there's so many things you can do before even getting those test results back. If like you were dead set on wanting to do that, you know? So if people don't want to do that, there's so much we can do, right? To make you feel better, that don't require the deeper level of testing. So yeah, so there is definitely people need to be looking at their microbiome, because that there is research showing that certain strains of bacteria do affect cortisol levels, blood sugar levels, how many calories you're actually getting from your food, and bacteria that are directly affecting your metabolism. So for sure, yeah, you definitely want to look at your gut health when it comes to your thyroid, especially if you have Hashimoto's disease. Because Hashimoto's is by nature autoimmune, and so you want to make sure that you are addressing autoimmunity. So that changes the game. When you have Hashimoto's, it's not like, oh, let's just give you more thyroid. Now it becomes you're more invested, because now it's like, oh, we got to take it to the next level and actually decrease overall inflammation in the body and figure out what triggered that inflammation. So okay. Oh, Deb saying, what's the potential impact of thyroid on primary hyperthyroidism? No, you're not, no, there's no effect. There's no effect. It's, if you have parathyroid surgery, they're very careful about affecting your thyroid. I think that they do everything they can to not take as much a piece of it out with the parathyroid, right? Because it's right there, literally. But normally, I've never seen people with hyperparathyroidism or hypo, for that fact, one way or the other, need thyroid meds after. But if you're already on thyroid meds and you have hyperparathyroidism, it doesn't mean that you will need. It doesn't mean that they'll be off. You might, like, someone might still need them. Does that answer your question? Okay. It's tough. It's tough. It's like, surgery, it's like all bets are off sometimes. Like you really have to but I've never seen anything drastically change. I have had one person, oh no, she had something different. She had Graves and she had hyperpara. So that's like if you were to have, if like it all needed to go, yeah, I've seen people who like need it all to go, parathyroids and the thyroid, and like, yeah, you need that's a drastic change, but yeah, I don't know. And honestly, so after thyroid surgery, so I just had a friend who had thyroid cancer. It came out of nowhere for him, unreal. And he went a long time without them checking his TSH after surgery. And I'm like, are you okay? Are you sure? He's like, yeah, they said it's fine. I'm like, no, it's been like 3 months. Like, you need to get checked. So, I always recommend, like with hyperpara, like always also checking the thyroid if it's not normal, if it's normal every 6 months, and if it's not normal, more frequently than that. All right. Thank you, Sherry. Oh, thank you, Deb. Best decision ever for your, I'm so excited. Rebecca, I'm a new member. First appointment is Friday. I'm so excited for you. You know what, Rebecca? You had all your thyroid done in March. Send them to Kristen. Can you upload them? And then what we'll do is, you know what, we can feed it into the functional health report, Kristen. And
Yeah.
then so do that if you can, what's today? It's Tuesday. If you can do that before Friday, and then we can have Stacy generate that little thing that you just saw, Rebecca, of like the rainbow chart of just your thyroid numbers. And we can do that. We'll do that for you. Okay. Awesome. Okay. So I think that's it. How do you test for Hashimoto's? So we need to get thyroid antibodies. So we need to look for anti-TPO and anti-thyroglobulin antibodies. So these are basically antibodies that your body is making towards specific components of your thyroid. And it's just a lab test. It's literally a lab draw that they could get right off the same vial that you got your TSH. I'm just going to say that. It's that simple. Don't be mad at your doctors, though. People are going to be mad.
That's more of an insurance thing. Insurance hates paying for those for some reason.
It is an insurance thing. So if you're going to an outside facility or you're using insurance, you definitely want to make sure that they're using the CPT code for autoimmune thyroiditis. So I'll write that here in the chat for you, if you're trying to get it covered. And because here's the thing, if we're thinking that's what it is, it's legitimate to check for it. Like, we're not trying to get around the system here. You know what I mean? Like, it's legitimate to check for this. Especially, I mean, there's so many, we did before you came on, Kristen, we did an autoimmune webinar to check for autoimmunity, and we're looking at ANA, and I was talking about getting an ANA, which is an anti-nuclear antibody. And you just have to make, I mean, there's so many things that can justify getting these things. It's just that sometimes, you know, like, I don't know, did they teach you coding in the hospital, Kristen? I don't know, but like, you have to know coding.
You do, but you don't learn it in school, which is crazy. I learned it like on the job. I was seeing patients. They're like, oh, this is how you code. And I'm like, this makes no sense why this was not taught, because that's a whole different entity in itself. So
yeah, it is. It's a whole thing. I mean, there are people who go to school for coding.
Right.
It's an actual, it's a trade. It's a trade job. It's a real thing. So, yeah, so it's a very simple test. And if you wanted to get that checked with us, like, and we needed to do a full comprehensive thyroid panel, then yeah, we can do that. We can get that. So you just have to send Kristen a message. So that's it. Are those all the questions? Anybody else have any questions? Want to raise their hand? I know we're 10 minutes past what I said we would be, but I'm so happy to answer any questions that might have come up. Anything you want to add, Kristen? You're welcome, Rebecca.
I don't think so. I think we covered all of it. That was great.
Okay. All right. So I'm happy to answer any questions that come after this. If you're a member, send us a message in the portal. If you're not a member, gopeakmed.com. I'll put that in the chat again. Click that link and get on the calendar. So many different ways to work with us. If you just want to figure out your thyroid and you're not looking for a primary care doctor, that's fine too. We can still help you. You just need to get on the call with Dr. Buddy, because he's the brains behind figuring out all of that. So I'm happy to help you figure out your thyroid. He will help you figure out how to work with us. He's not on the call tonight, but Darlene, you say, I still wonder what really caused my low thyroid. Yeah. You know, here's the thing though. I mean, I think that's like kind of the same situation like my mom, Darlene, where like you go so long with low thyroid, it's really hard to pinpoint what caused it in the first place. You know, like we're talking like years and years. If you've been on medication for years, it's really hard to know if it was a deficiency, like a nutrient deficiency. It's really hard to know if it was autoimmune destruction of the tissue or what. We could try to figure out what's currently going on, right? But yeah, I would send Kristen a message in the portal, and you know what we can do is her and I can get together and put our heads together and see, you know, if there's anything we're missing or if anything I missed, you know, and take another look. And it might be time to recheck too. Maybe we can get other labs. I don't know, but it is hard. And my heart goes out to people who have low thyroid, because y'all have not gotten any answers. And it's really hard. It's really hard to get answers in this space, you know, because the symptoms are all over the place, you know, the symptoms are all over the place. fatigue to depression to constipation to skin problems, you know, and a lot of people, a lot of practitioners, you know, are not connecting the dots, especially when we have like 9 minutes with you in the office, you know. So my heart goes out to y'all if you we haven't figured out that, but and you know, I wouldn't worry about what caused it initially. Like, let's just move forward. Just make sure that we got you right now. We have you get you straight, get you right now, and then move forward from here. And that's why, like, I said what I said at the beginning, because it's just like my heart goes out to everyone who's just felt like so invalidated and walked out of the doctor's office with no answers, because it's not fair. And being in that space of discomfort, that's a very uncomfortable space to be in, of not knowing what's going on with you, you know, and then to go somewhere and then thinking you're going to get answers and you don't get answers. So even if we can't get you answers at peak, we are at least trying, right? We are at least like trying, we're at least trying, and we will hold space for you and we'll walk with you in the discomfort if we don't know what's actively going on in the moment, you know? And so even if we can't cure or reverse or, you know, address something certain, like, we will do our best. We'll be your best advocate. That's what I can promise you. So, okay, y'all. I love y'all. Thank you so much for coming. Bye, Deb. Bye, Darlene. Thank you all for coming. And if you're a member, I will figure out the recording. And if you wanted to watch it again, I might post it in the group. It's probably the best way. So, all right. Have a good night, everyone.